Well, alrighty then, and welcome back once again. Before we go on, please do make sure to click the old subscribe, ding a little dong, and like and comment as well if you can. Okay, this video we are looking at doing true metal metallic red armor. Here's Prince de Valle from the Crimson Court, and as they say, one I finished earlier. That's the workup that we're going to be looking at doing today, although we'll be doing this on a slightly different model. So this workup is essentially just a candy coat or tint or filter over a true metal metallic workup. We're going to do it using one of the other members of the Crimson Court, Vellas von Faine, I think. And the metals that we're going to be using are from scale color, decayed metal mixed with a little bit of decay black for our base coat, and then from decayed metal we're going to bring in a little tickle of Victorian Brass, again scale color. All the metallics we're using today are scale color. From there we'll highlight up further with a little bit of amber alchemy, and from then on we will start bringing in some highlights with a little tickle of thrash metal, and finally for the top highlights a bit of heavy metal. Now for our filter, our red tint or candy coat over, we'll be doing some of the scale 75 instant Salmon Fury for the lightest, then Love Affair for the mid-tone, and then our deepest tone is going to be a little bit of Dragon Blood. So the first thing we want to do is have a look on our palette. I've got some black with a little bit of decayed metal underneath it because we'll be mixing those two together for the very base tone. Then the decayed metal on its own, the Victorian Brass, the amber alchemy, and then our final two silver highlights of thrash metal and heavy metal. Whenever I use metallic paints, I always use synthetic brushes. Metallic paints are not particularly great for natural hair sable brushes. So I use the Broken Toad Fugazis, which are a really nice synthetic brush, long lasting as well. So let's get our mix on. About a 50-50 of decay black and decayed metal until we get a nice, essentially a kind of a brown black metallic. Alright, with our black bronze loaded up, let's go in and base coat all of those metals. So she's got greaves, knee pads, thigh armor, hip plates, breastplates, and we're going to leave the shoulder plates for more of a kind of a steel workup. So for now we'll just get all of these based in this black bronze.
Okay, with our dark base bronze down, we're now going to start sketching in our highlights and bringing them out towards the apices. Usually with metallics especially, I like to work from dark to light. So we're going to use pure decayed metal and just pull out our sketch towards the areas of strongest highlight. So for this, I'm just going to use pure decayed metal, no black additive this time. And again, as I say, just pull the sketch out towards the areas of strongest highlight. Don't forget to grab the lines as well along the armour, which will also catch some of the light.
Alright, so next we're going to start mixing in a little bit of Victorian Brass to Decayed metal and start to bring our highlights up stronger. And again, this is more of a kind of a brassy gold. I want it to look a little bit old, a little bit aged. So we're mixing it up about 50-50 or so. And with our new mix, we are going in and starting again, pulling this towards the highlights and all the different apices, making sure to catch the edges of the armor as well. So not quite as much coverage as we did with the plain Decayed metal earlier on, just to get a nice blend on. Once we're finished with our 50-50 mix, we're going to move straight into
Victorian Brass. The idea is to build up the highlights bit by bit, brighter and brighter. So we got nice dark black decayed metal in the shadows, and bring it up through now into Victorian Brass towards the apices. Watch now again as I reduce the real estate that I'm highlighting each time, always pulling towards the strongest highlight. So with the Victorian Brass finished, you can now start to see how the highlights and the shadows are taking shape. We're pulling it out onto the points, and then the top was facing plateaus as well. With that done, let's move on a little bit more and bring these highlights up even further. We're going to over accentuate our highlights because we still have the red filters to go. So our next step now is to move on and bring an even brighter gold in with Amber Alchemy. Again, a 50-50 or so. So we're moving up from the black and bronze into a more brassy gold, and now into a more kind of yellowy white gold. And again, as I said, we're going to over accentuate our highlights because they will get muted down a little bit with the red filters. So we need to go further and make them even stronger than we normally would if we were just doing a normal gold workup. Okay, I think you can kind of see where we're going here. From the Victorian Brass and Amber Alchemy mix, we're going to go straight next to just pure Amber Alchemy. And then from there, we'll add some Thrash metal in. And then from there, we'll add in some heavy metal. Again, building up our highlights to an eventual apex highlight, which in essence looks like a dirty silver. Alright, solid. So our metallic workup all done now. You get a little goosey gander. You can see our deep shadows right out to those really nice bright apex. And again, as I said, we overemphasize a little bit, especially around the edges of the armor, because we are going to filter over this. And whenever you filter or use a glaze, it does reduce your contrast. So we'll start with the lightest of the reds, which is Salmon Fury, which will be focused mostly on the mid-tones out to the highlights. From there, a little bit of Love Affair. And finally, for the deepest shadows, you can see there in the middle of the plate, and then around the back and in the shadows, we'll go for a little bit of the old dragon blood. So with the airbrush loaded up with a little bit of pure dragon blood, which is the lightest of the colours, you can do this with brush, but if you are doing it with the brush, thin down the instant paint first, maybe 50-50. If you're doing this with contrast paints, they are very much heavier than the instants, so thin them down much more. We go into the airbrush, we're focusing on the mid-tones out towards the highlights. Again, this is glazing. Don't slop it on or remain in one area too long. Very thin light glazes and build it up rather than trying to color any one area all at once. So little light glaze over an area, move on to the next. Little light glaze there, move on to the next, and so on, and then come back. It'll take a couple of passes to build up the tint softly and smoothly. Don't lose your patience. Don't try and overdo it. Don't blast each section all at once. It'll look like shite. So just very thin light glazes. My compressor is normally set to, I don't know, 30 psi. I control the pressure really through the trigger as opposed to setting the compressor. And again, I'm barely pulling back here. It's incredibly light application. Okay, so with our highlighted areas now tinted, we're going to start moving on to a darker, richer red Love Affair. And this time we are going to aim to intensify our reds. We're working on the mid-tones and pushing back towards the shadows. Same process again, load up airbrush with neat Love Affair and gently, emphasis on gently, glaze it back from the mid-tone in towards the shadows. What we want now is to start really intensifying the red on the metal.
Alrighty, with our mid-tones taken care of, let's roll in the dragon blood and start tinting those shadows and the darker areas. We're going to not just hit the shadows, we're going to just overlap a little bit into the mid-tones, just to make a nice smooth transition from one to the other. Again, load up the airbrush, pure dragon blood, off we go. You can see by now that our red armor is really starting to take shape. We've got nice light reds out to the highlights, deeper midtones, and now we're going to really go in and saturate and push the depths on the darker tones. Once again, easy does it. Don't blast the shite out of the thing. Just really nice, simple, light glazes. Work in an area, move on. Work in the next area, move on. And carry on around the model. So with our red armor now all filtered on, last thing to do is just reinstall a few little point highlights. So it's just Amber Alchemy. I have some trash metal there which I'm not going to actually use, but just a little Amber Alchemy, and we're going to go in just on the different apex points on the edges of the armor where lines intersect, and just a little tiny apex highlight. That's all we need. So I'm just going to go around the armor, picking out the little points that I want to gleam the most. there we have it. With those final highlights penciled in just around the edges and on the fine points with that amber gold, we can call our red metal armor done. It's a wee treat. Let's see the finished model. That is pretty much us. I hope you enjoyed the video, and do make sure to jump over onto Twitch and catch us there for the live streams. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, all that jazz. Until next time.